Good afternoon and welcome along to another edition of the Gaz Meets podcast with me, Gaz. Joining me in the studio today, you might not be familiar with his face, but you will have heard these dulcet tones on your TV, is none other than Rory Hamilton. Rory, thanks very much for
Thank you
coming
very
in.
much. Face for commentary.
Yeah.
Keep me off the telly.
I should say, firstly, a correction and an edit for the last Added Time podcast that we did when we had Rob Harron from the Rangers Journal, not the Rangers Review, as I introduced him. So, yeah, the guys are absolutely fine about that, but just to get that out there. So, our sponsors are AO Home Improvements from, they're right across. They can get you your home improvements and your renovations. So if you get online and give them a check out. So Rory, welcome to the show. Delighted we've got you into the studio. As I know you'll be busy this week, not only with the Scottish Cup final on Saturday, but with the rugby as well. You're a big rugby fan.
Yep. I mean, I've always, whatever sport, if I could chase a ball, hit a ball, kick a ball, whatever it was, I've always been into it. I mean, obviously when I was younger, more playing it. Now more talking about it. The legs don't quite keep up with the ball quite as well as they used to. But big finish coming up in the rugby, and obviously the same in the football, Scottish Cup final, and then I've got the 2 Scotland warm-ups before the Euros. And that's kind of football done for the season after that. And the rugby, the playoffs happen while the Euros are on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a few sort of half-hearted flights booked from Munich to Glasgow, maybe to Dublin, just to see, because you don't know where games are going to be played, who's going to be in them. So that's going to make that quite interesting.
I was going to say, how excited are you for the Euros? Obviously, the last time we spoke, it was Euro 2021. So how excited are you to be finally, going to foreign climes?
I mean, this feels like something I've been waiting for my whole life.
Yeah.
The last Euros was great because we were there, but with COVID, with the reduced capacities in the stadiums, also with it being Scotland's games were at Hampden and one at Wembley, it doesn't quite feel as special as going abroad for a couple of weeks and soaking up another culture and everything that goes along with that. It's more of an adventure, so I am extremely excited for it. I've followed Scotland home and away since 2006 was my first away game.
Mm-hmm.
Home games going back, right into the early 90s, just when I was a kid. So yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long, long time, and there's a big group of us going out. I think we have all the accommodation booked, maybe not the last night, which is going to be so who knows? I mean, if we've qualified, when I say the last night, that might be getting extended.
Hopefully,
depending on how we get on. But yeah, the last night of the group stages, I don't have anywhere to stay, so that might be hopefully a bar's open until the wee small hours.
Yeah, as I say, I'm going myself, and I'm the same. I'm very much like I could be bankrupt if we get out this group chatting because you need to stay on. But as I say, Stevie Clarke has named his provisional 28-man squad, with the exception probably of James Forrest due to his club form. Do you think there was maybe a surprise among fans with Ben Doak and Ryan Jack being named just due to the probably lack of game time?
Yeah, and to be honest, there's a few in there that are lacking game time. That will hope to get some over these 2 warm-up games against Finland and Gibraltar. I think with Ryan Jack, there's quite a lot of money in the bank with Steve Clarke. He's a big fan of him.
Mm-hmm.
Loves his attitude, and he's never really, he'll always give you a good shift. I think it's a shame that he's missed out on so much game time.
Mm-hmm.
For a few years, Ryan Jack, because he's a reliable player. So he'll be in there for that. He's obviously in an area of the pitch that is extremely competitive. So 2 are to go from the 28. It'll be interesting to see who the 2 are. And you touch on James Forrest and Ben Doak. James, I'm delighted that he's included. I think it's over 1,000 days since he last played for Scotland.
Was it the hat trick? It would have been his last game, no?
No, it was after that, but I can't remember. I read it somewhere. There was 1,000 days. or 1,000+ days since he last played for Scotland. So he can be a big player for us. And I think the combination of having James Forrest in the squad and Ben Doak, maybe going up to 26 men in the squad, has just allowed us to pick those extra 2 that gives us the option of width off the bench.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that we tend to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not something that we have in the squad is wide players. So whenever we've been changing, the change up comes from a back 3 to a back 4 or 5 to a 4, however way you want to look at it. This now allows us to play a front 3 with 2 wide men, one behind, whatever it needs. And I think that's actually really crucial going into a major tournament. You're not going to have everything your own way.
Mm-hmm.
Games aren't going to pan out exactly how you want them to. So you need to come up with different ways to be able to win it. And I think that gives us that option. And I think, the right wing back's obviously a big problem area with
Aaron
and Nathan not making it. And I just want, I've seen James Forrest do that before for Celtic, play that wing back role. Obviously, it's an attacking role.
Yeah.
But he could do it. And, now he's a bit older, bit wiser. Might have the discipline to play in there. Just as an option, it might be that we want to play the same system, but we want a more attacking fullback than, say, Ross McCrory.
Yeah.
So that's when James Forrest might come into it, or as a wide right, wide left. He's versatile.
Mm-hmm. And obviously we'll touch on Scotland later on in the show. But if we go back to you growing up in school up north, I know you're big into your rugby and football, but was media always your kind of plan A? Was that always where you visioned yourself going?
No. I mean, plan A was to be on the pitch.
As always.
Yeah, it's only the last couple of years I've given up on that dream. So I don't think I even really thought that sport and media was even a job until I was actually in it.
Yeah.
And particularly not commentary.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always really into sport. But I think sort of finishing up at school, where I was sort of always, there was quite a high expectation to do well academically and to go on and do that sort of route in a career. And I didn't see myself that way, and I'm really glad that I didn't. I went to university and did sports science. A lot of my teachers and headmasters and things like that, probably parents would have wanted me or expected me maybe to have done something a little bit higher brow, like medicine or law or something like that. But it wouldn't have been me.
Yeah.
So I went down the sort of sports science route, and I ended up going into STV at weekends and just putting like manager interviews up on their website, and for very little money. It was just about covered my train fare from Edinburgh to Glasgow each week, and that was just a way in, and that gave me an insight into sport on TV, and that just slowly grew into more. They asked me to cut some match edits, maybe come in an extra couple of days a week, and that turned into a full-time contract or a year contract. And then you get to see the environment around a live game, and seeing how everything actually gets played in, how the replays come up, and seeing everything around it. And that was when I realised, this might actually be a career for me. But to get to commentary that took a lot longer. And I think when a lot of people now are quite keen on getting in on media, and they see presenters and they hear commentators and reporters, and they think that's the one for me. That's what I want to do, and they chase that for a long, long time, because that's what's front and center. That's what you see and that's what you hear. So it's the obvious thing to want to get into, and I found that was where my best skills and attributes led me down that path. Loads of other people that I know have started out wanting to be presenters and commentators, and they've ended up being directors, producers, planners, cameramen, sound engineers, all that sort of thing. And so I think it's a really important thing to remind yourself that your skills might not actually lead you to where you want to go, but it's important to take yourself where you're best suited, because that's where you'll thrive.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Jim Delahunt. You know, everybody has that one person probably in their career that helps them along the way, that looks out for them, and he obviously gave you the nudge for the Satanta sports gig. You know, how pleased were you then just to be able to step up? Because obviously he says you enjoyed the production side of things when you were going into STV. So how much of a jump was that to go into Satanta, and what was your role there?
So it was a similar role, but they had a lot more live football. So I went from STV doing really a highlights program, which is a really good way to learn how the industry works and that sort of thing. Going down to Satanta on JD's recommendation, so I owe him a lot. That threw me into a much more a live wire environment. It was a bit more cutthroat. There were a lot of young people there that were really keen on getting ahead in the industry. Most of them are still in it, and I'm still good friends with them. But that was a time when Satanta had 60 live games a year. They were just starting their 24-hour news channel. They had a golf channel. They did boxing. They had rugby. So all these things I could get stuck into. So it was brilliant. You know, it wasn't just you've got one show at the end of the week and everything's geared towards that. And the majority of that was really backloaded towards the end of the week once you actually got the footage of the games in. There wasn't that much that you could do before that. Whereas with this, it was just ongoing all the time. Everyone was working on something specific that might be completely different to what you were doing. So it was just a bigger operation and much more live events, and so it gave opportunity to expose yourself to that, to see how a live OB works, and I just had this attitude of say yes to everything. You know, if somebody wanted me to work on the touring cars or the Australian Rugby League, I'm like, well, I don't know anything about it, but
I'll give it.
I'll be the guy that if you want somebody to do it, then I'll be the one that says yes. So I mean, we did some great shifts with Ricky Hatton was fighting over in Vegas and stuff like that. We were, of course, back in a studio in Glasgow, but there were a crew out in Vegas, and we pulled. I think I did 36 hours straight that night, which you probably wouldn't get away with nowadays.
No, definitely not.
But there was a lot of Red Bull drunk and just trying to keep yourself awake. But everyone was so enthused by it, and like I say, it was a lot of young guys that were really keen to get in the industry. So everyone had that right attitude of pulling in the right direction.
Yeah, and obviously when you touch on rugby, in 2009, the Magners League, Edinburgh v Connacht, you know, you kind of, you talk about throwing yourself into anything, and you threw yourself into commentary. You know, how much of a buzz was that for you to do your, was that your first rugby game you done?
That was the first rugby game. So that was 4 highlights, but you just do it at the stadium as if it's live. And I think Edinburgh scored a record number of points, 62-15's in my head right now, but it might not have been that, but it was around about that scoreline at Murrayfield, and it actually came about. Satanta had gone bust that summer, and STV picked up the Magners League highlights rights. So it was Colin Davison that used to be the boss at the exec producer at Satanta, and then did this as a freelancer for STV. And so he got together a few of us. Amy Thabot was the other AP, Norman Corbett, producer, to put it all together. And I think we'd done 1 or 2 weeks of the program, and they just sort of said, "Oh, like, everything's going great, feedback's brilliant. The only thing that people are saying is that it's a league that involves Welsh, Irish, and Scottish teams, and we've got Welsh and Irish commentators and no Scots."
Yeah,
I sort of made a joke in the meeting that, well, I'll do it, and sort of laugh and off we go. And then I was commuting from up north. My mum and dad live in Speyside, so I was driving down on the Thursday, I think, for a Friday game. It's about a 3-hour commute, and Colin phoned me and said, "Look, you know, you said that in the meeting. Well, you know, we'd like to give you a go this week." So that was how it came about. You know, just by chance, and that kind of that gave me the bug. And like you said before, you don't know until you're in it. You don't know if you have those attributes in you.
Yeah.
To be able to
sink or
be
swim.
behind them. Yeah, it is. And it becomes more so when a game is live. That's really sink or swim. You can't practice that. You hope that the bits and pieces that you've done before that guide you through it. And I think actually having a background in production really helps. To know exactly what goes into a TV production, a broadcast of a live game, having been behind the scenes in the trucks, knowing everything that goes on in it, I think was a massive help to me.
And in terms of, obviously, you talk about sink or swim or things going wrong. Has there ever been a moment in your commentary career where, something's kind of maybe went wrong? Is it better just to kind of not mention it, or just go with the flow, just keep going and people will forget it?
I think we usually try and make a joke about it.
Especially if Ali's co-commentating.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got Ali, Chris Sutton will absolutely pull you up. So you're almost better to laugh at yourself before they laugh at you. They'll pick up on it. And to be honest, once I worked with them enough, I was confident enough also to pick up on them.
Yeah.
I remember Chris doing it once. They just maybe identified a player wrongly. And then the replays came in and he kept going. It was at Hibs at Easter Road. I can't remember who it was, but like I've done it plenty as well. And it was just the wrong player, but he kept going with the first one, and that was the first time. It was maybe like 6 months in, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to go for him here. So I apologised to him at full time, and all he said was, I'd have done exactly the same to you. So.
And obviously, when you look at when you were working, you worked for Radio Scotland and Sky as well as doing the STV rugby. How difficult a decision would it been? It went to go to Sky, considering the rugby and the football maybe clashing.
Yeah, well, I mean, at that time, and still now, to a degree, I'm a gun for hire essentially.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do at that stage as a freelancer is maximize your income, and if you're doing something that's actually on screen, your exposure as well. So I mean, Sky's the perfect platform. I was there as a freelancer. I wasn't exclusive to them at all, so I could still work for others, but I got a good volume of work from them. And of course, you add in the factor of Sky Sports News.
Yeah.
So that actually started to get me a little bit more into the mainstream. And you get your face on the telly, or you get your voice on the telly, or you get to do more interviews because they've got such a big volume of work.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realise just how much goes into or comes out of that office just at Blythswood Square, not far away from here. It's a really big operation, albeit with a small number of people behind it, and they put in some amount of work. So it's not really necessary one or the other. It's just how much can you actually squeeze in. And to be honest, it used to be a Saturday. I've done 4 shifts on a Saturday. I mean, every Saturday was 3 Saturday nights and until 2 in the morning. So what your bigger dilemma is probably more your social life.
Yeah.
I've probably only been to 2, maybe 3 of my mates' weddings.
Yeah.
I've got more than 3 mates. but you miss out on all these things, birthday parties and all that sort of thing, and with the relationships that you have in your life, it takes time for those people to realize that you're not making a choice. You're not choosing to not go to their thing.
Yeah.
It's that you've got something that is more important.
Yeah, it's your career. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that still goes on today. It's if work comes up and it's a good opportunity.
Because
then,
essentially, if you knock that back, then it means you don't get the next big job and things like that.
Well, that's how you feel it is in your head. It's not always that case, but you do feel that way.
Yeah.
Or if you don't take it and maybe you sit at home and then you're like, how can I justify this? I mean, you're essentially chucking money out the window.
Yeah.
So, I made the right sacrifices, but it definitely had to, more than probably in other careers.
And you've obviously got one of those voices, I think, that, it's instantly recognisable, where alongside Ian Crocker, you probably are one of the voices of Scottish football. But in terms of other commentators, maybe growing up when you were younger, who was it? Who was the guys that stood out for you?
Well, I mean, to touch on Crocs and Derek Ray were both really helpful to me, because I think Crocs especially because I was at Sky at the same time as him.
Yeah.
So he saw me as coming through with some potential, and Derek was down the stairs, and I'd see him at games as well. So both really, really helpful to me, and still to this day. Growing up, Bill McLaren was the voice for me on the rugby. Just
iconic voice.
Yeah, incredible voice, master of the English language, and would get the big moments right. There's so many through Scottish football history, like Archie McPherson, Jerry McNee was always great as well. Jock Brown, all these guys that I've worked with. I worked with Archie at STV as a very junior assistant producer, but to see there's an aura that follows him around, a glow, because he's a real legend of Scottish sport. But Martin Tyler was another that was really good to me in the early days at Sky. I had a good few phone conversations with him, and he's always said, the line's open, give me a ring. He gave me the best piece of advice that I think I've ever had, and it was his words were, the best piece of advice I can give you is don't take on too much advice.
Yeah.
Which what he was meaning was, or what I think he was meaning was to kind of be your own man.
Yeah.
You know, every commentator has their own style. And if you try and copy Bill McLaren, or Ian Crocker, or Martin Tyler, Derek Ray, then you'll fail, because they're better at being them than you are. You need to... there might be elements. There might be elements of theirs that you like or you feel more associated with. But essentially, you have to be you. Which I hope I have. I mean, you're always developing, but I hope I'm sort of finding my sort of niche in that way.
Yeah, and in terms of obviously football and rugby, there's also golf as well. That's in your sporting spectrum. So, in terms of the European tour, I think maybe about 10 years ago, what was like the famous faces you kind of came across there? What was you got any kind of?
Well, I was doing a lot of stuff in the Challenge Tour.
Yeah.
Which is, one ring below the European Tour. I've always loved golf. I mean, in fact, I'm going to the driving range after this. I've got a few tweaks I need to make. So I'm getting obsessive again after a few years of not playing it that much. I'm now right back in it.
Funnily enough, Lewis was going to play golf actually. Yeah.
So a lot of the guys that I worked quite closely with then were names that you hadn't always heard of. I mean, I saw them. We did an interview. We did the Belgian Open over near Antwerp, and we did an interview in his flat with Thomas Dietrich.
Yeah,
who I was delighted to see just the other day in the USPGA was certainly at one stage he was in the top 5. I don't know where exactly he finished, but he was just a young guy. So that's where the Challenge Tour is. It's loads of young up and coming guys. Julian Suri was really good, and he's gone on and done quite well. He went European Tour, then US, and then you've also got your journeymen that have maybe missed out, and they're having to drop down and really work for their earnings, because a lot of these guys, they might not, out of their budget, they might not bother putting in a caddy. So sometimes just pushing their own trolleys, trying to look for cheap flights in and out of if they miss the cut or whatever. It's a different world. But I've done plenty of other things at the. I mean, I worked on stuff at the Ryder Cup and with Sky Sports News, doing some more sort of featurey interviews with some of the bigger names, your sort of Paul Lawries and of this world. So yeah, there's Stephen Gallagher. Rory McIlroy, Ian Poulter, Lee Westwood. I did a wee thing with. So there's a few of the names to drop in there.
Yeah, and obviously with the Challenge Tour, is that like, because I remember one of the, I don't know if it was the British Open or the Scottish Open. Remember this kind of youngster coming up. He was a wild card, and I think he won it or he came second, but he couldn't.
I mean, Justin Rose.
He didn't get the prize money.
Yeah,
because he was a wild card.
Yeah, I think it was Justin Rose. That was the year. I'm pretty sure, was it down at, was it Hoylake? I can't remember exactly where it was. And the Frenchman Van de Velde put it in the water, had the shoes and socks off.
Remember it, iconic.
And Justin Rose, I think he was like 18 or something. And he might have finished one off, but couldn't take any of the money. Of course, he went pro on Monday morning. So you can then start generating some money. But I mean, the interest in him will have gone sky high after that. And obviously, he's had an incredible career. He's actually one that I interviewed as well, and he was putting down at Troon, and we were doing a thing for Sky Sports News, and so just filmed him on the putting green, and he was a little bit. I could see him being a bit tetchy, and then he just said, like, no filming. And I thought, oh, there's a bit of an ego here. And then he came over at the end and he was like, I'm so sorry how I came across there. That's awful. I feel really, really bad. And he was just saying, like, I'm working with a different coach at the moment, and I don't want it to be out there. So if possible, could you delete the footage and I'll give you an interview. And he was brilliant. He was so friendly. And he was more upset that a character that wasn't his had come across. So I thought, that's a really good sign of a good guy, I thought.
Yeah, so where is some of the best courses in that you've played?
Oh, we could go on this for a long, long time. I mean, Scotland is absolutely packed full of the best courses in the world. So we're so lucky. So lucky. I'll give you a list of a few of my favourites. Kingsbarns is outstanding. Castle Stewart, the same architect, are both absolutely brilliant. So they're the kind of the more modern ones that I think. Trump Aberdeen's very good. He's not maybe necessarily somebody that I would want to be
but in terms of the
to,
course,
but
obviously,
the course is outstanding. We played Turnberry as well a few months ago. That was pretty good. For the old ones, I love Macrahanish. Trip down to Campbelltown, and a wee night out, have a few whiskies. The Macrahanish is good. A Royal Dornoch is right up there. I played a few abroad, but I don't know if I think of any of the sort of major classics. No, I don't think so. Don't think any sort of known ones. I'd love to get out and play some of the islands. Go out to Isla and places like that. Jura, there's an amazing course in Jura that I'd love to play. So yeah, there's still loads in the
bucket list.
Yeah,
obviously, I think the furthest I've ever got with a golf club was, I think it was Top Golf in Florida.
Oh well,
and it was a decent, obviously really nice weather kind of thing, but I'm more crazy golfing than 18 holes. But he joined the BT Sport team in 2017. I think what comes across is that he's a really, really close knit team. From yourself, Chris Sutton, Daryl Curry, Emma Dodds, the national treasure, and apologies to Michael Stewart, but it's not him, it's Ali McCoist, obviously, in co-coms, as much as I love Michael Stewart's commentary during the qualifiers. Just as a side note, Daryl Curry, obviously, how is he keeping? Is he?
Yeah, well, and I mean, I nearly mentioned him before, because, when I was talking about Setanta, and it was all these young guys that were really hungry, and Daryl sat opposite me, and he's actually married to a girl that I went to school with as well. So Daryl and I have always been quite close, and it's such a shame that he's not involved at the moment. So I wouldn't like to give a full update, because I do still speak to him, of course, but we'd just love to have him back
to get him back.
soon. He was the he was the master of controlling
Uh
Ali and Chris.
huh.
And,
Yeah.
and throw Michael and Craigs in there, and or whoever else. I mean, we had. You're right. We had such a good team on BT Sport, and it was just as it was on TV. It was like that
Uh huh.
off screen as well. Really, really good bunch. Great atmosphere around. I think Grant Phillips, the exec producer, and that was what he really wanted. That was his vision for it, to
Mm-hmm.
not take ourselves too seriously. See, we didn't always get the really big games because Sky would have the better end of the contract, the bigger 30 games, if you like. So we would sometimes have the second pick. So you've got to maybe generate something that gathers people's interest. And I think with the team that he put together and the attitude that he wanted us to have, created this kind of freedom and friendship, which I think did come across on screen.
Yeah. And, when you look at glamorous stadiums, Wembley, Tottenham Stadium, Nou Camp, Bernabeu, when you look at I think people think that commentators get to go in this nice wee box that's warm and comfy and cosy and they're looking at screens, and that's far from the case, because in your debut for Sky commentating the Scottish Cup, Arbroath v Rangers, wintry cold night, it has to be said. What was what was your feelings in that night?
It must have been January, or it would have been January, because it would have been the
I think it was
fourth
early
round
rounds
of the
cup,
cup,
yeah.
whichever the round at that stage was that the Premier League top flight teams came into. So Rangers, Arbroath, and so I mean that was my first real live game for a broadcaster that's going out in like mainstream UK. So you're obviously feeling a little bit nervous anyway.
Yeah.
You're wanting to do a good job. I had Andy Walker with me, who that was great. I've known Andy for a long time, and so that sort of relaxes you a wee bit. But I've always been quite a meticulous maker of notes.
Yeah.
I don't rely on my memory, probably for good reason. So I still to this day loads and loads of notes for the game. Usually it is in here, but if it's not, I know where to go. So I've got little cards for every player, pages of stats on the game, script for like when the teams come out and all that sort of thing. Because before the game kicks off, you're filling for 5 minutes. So I still to this day, I write all that out. It allows you to convey the real feelings of the game. What's at stake? What's the jeopardy? And of course, we're at Gayfield at Arbroath. So not the glamour as you talk about. There's very rarely actually there. And it was a scaffolding attached to the top, not of the main stand, opposite the main stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, well, can we not get a roof on it? Because it was forecast to rain. And they were like, well, if we put a roof on it, then we essentially become a sail, which will take the scaffolding into the North Sea.
Yeah.
That's the North Sea. Can't remember. Yeah, it should be. Which is like at the wall behind the stadium, and which will also take the roof off the stand. So that's not happening. So we wore harnesses and we were clipped in to the scaffolding and with no roof. And of course, as the teams are walking out, starts bucketing with rain, and all my notes are just
ruined.
Mush.
Yeah.
But so that's what I mean about you can't replicate a live environment. So as much as I will have, watched Rangers, I'll have gone up and watched Arbroath train.
Yeah.
Couldn't see them in a game because I would have been working the same day. I'll have watched Rangers last game. You get everything down to a T, and then you're like, well,
that's it up in there. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and obviously, you've got an affinity with Scottish Cup. What kind of games in the Scottish Cup over the years that you've done? What kind of games stick out as being really memorable?
I mean, to be honest, because I quite often get asked like, your top 5 games that you've ever done and that sort of thing. I think possibly the best Scottish Cup game that I've done was Aberdeen Celtic semi-final that's just gone.
Yeah,
which makes it easier to remember as well. But that was a game that had absolutely everything, and fair play to Aberdeen scoring 90 and 120, taking it to penalties. that was an absolute cracker. I thought the final when Celtic won the quadruple treble
Against Hearts,
in November.
Very similar, I thought.
Yeah, very similar game, and I think that felt like one because Celtic weren't. They were on the start of their decline. That was in the 10 in a row season, and late on in it, or midway through, just when things they were struggling in Europe. Things weren't quite going right in the league. They were knocked out the League Cup by Ross County, and they got over the line in that game. It felt like one of those that if there was an extra half hour, I thought Hearts were probably going to win that. I don't know if it had the same feeling with Aberdeen in this one. I think Celtic probably always felt like they had reasonable control, but Aberdeen just hit them late.
Yeah.
That one I thought Hearts missed out on quite a big opportunity that day.
I think it was carbon copy goals as well for Aberdeen when you look at the 2 goals at the back post kind of thing, nodded in.
Yeah.
And obviously, you've went up and down the country, you've commentated on Scottish, English, European games. In terms of stadiums then that you've maybe visited, what would you say would be your best, and is there any stadiums that you really, really want to go and commentate in?
Yeah, well, best ones that I've commentated in, the new Spurs ground is incredible. I was there, I did a rugby game there in New Zealand against the Barbarians, so it wasn't full. I think there was about 30,000 there, but even still, you're getting this feeling of what it would be like full, which would be incredible. I do think that whenever I've been, or whenever I've listened to games, which is plenty of, and watched games, there isn't the same sort of atmosphere in England as you get
in Scotland
here. Particularly Celtic, Rangers, Hampden, Tynecastle, Tannadice. There's a little bit more oomph behind an atmosphere. I think in these grounds. Other ones, Zenit St. Petersburg. I think at the time was the most expensive football ground in the world. They spent $1 billion on it just pre-World Cup, so that was when Celtic were out there. I've always loved the Europa League because I think it gets away from the really elite clubs that have just got so much money that they can chuck it at everything. And you see it now with Real Madrid's new stadium, and every club's got this mega stadium. And I quite like going to some of the more traditional ones, or the ones that have got a bit more thought put to them, like Braga. Amazing. Was there with Rangers. That's an iconic stadium for me. Belgrade, the Maracana, that's more about the atmosphere that the fans bring to it, and the ultras and all the flares and the riot cops and all that sort of thing. It's just bonkers out there. Westfalenstadion, or whatever sponsorship name they've got. I went there in the 2006 World Cup for Brazil against Japan. Ronaldo at the time broke the record for most number of World Cup goals. So that was one. I'd love to go to a Dortmund game there. Obviously was out there for Rangers, but I think that it was reduced capacity, so you didn't get the full yellow wall and all that kind of thing. Copenhagen was unbelievable for atmosphere. It was absolutely sensational. Celtic were 1-up at half time, and it was like being at a party. Home fans, away fans, that's one of the loudest I've ever heard. Parkenstadion was incredible. And the other one that I'll touch on from a rugby side of things is Yokohama. Was out there for the World Cup, Scotland, Japan, and Scotland lost to one of the best performances I've seen. And I actually did leap for possibly the only time in my life I could actually walk away from the ground saying, do you know what, I'm actually happy for the opposition, because their fans were so good. They were absolutely brilliant.
I think they showed that in the last World Cup. I think they showed that. Yeah,
magnificent. If I was to pick one ground or one game to be able to commentate at, it would be the Bombonera for Boca River.
Oh, that'd be phenomenal.
So that's as high on my list as can be.
And obviously, when you know what game you're going to do live, in terms of like your script then do you prepare for like last minute winners or, certain events during the game, or sometimes do you kind of just go like in terms of like the Norway game in Oslo, I mean, you could probably couldn't hear you much over Michael Stewart to be fair that day, but the Glaswegian Coliseum line was always one that sticks in my head as well. Is that something that you prepare for, or sometimes you just throw it out?
And that comes probably from experience and speaking to people with experience. I think you can tell when somebody scripts something.
Yeah.
So like I said before, I'll script teams coming out, summarize the game. I might even do, if it's a final, a trophy lift line, because that's something you can prepare for.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be stuck with nothing.
Yeah. So you can potentially do both scenarios.
Yeah. There. Yeah. I think it's best to leave it to your feelings at that moment are going to be the best possible way to bring that across.
Yeah.
Hopefully the message gets from there to there. But things like, I mean, Norway completely off the cuff because that was a game, that was a 0-0 game. Written all over. There were no chances. It was very cagey. There wasn't an awful lot of quality. They got a non-penalty. I mean, it was okay. I can see how it's given, but
yeah, it's very soft. Yeah,
it wasn't as if he wasn't fouled, then he was going to score. Like it's going way over his head. So and then Ostergaard slips. The Dykes gets in, and then you've got that 126 seconds or whatever it is. Is you can't prepare for that.
Yeah,
and so I always, or if I touch on it actually, the Glaswegian Coliseum is one that sometimes during a game you can see maybe where things are going.
Yeah,
and that came to me maybe 20. I think was it Christie equalised. Ryan Christie equalised.
No, Dykes, I think.
No, sorry, in the Celtic.
Oh, sorry, Christie, yeah.
Christie.
Yeah.
I think he equalised. And at that moment, I thought Celtic could go on and win this. And I actually did start, one of the only times I've done it, I started jotting a few things down. And I had Glasgow's Coliseum or something like that and scratched it out because I was like, it doesn't quite work. But I thought Glaswegian Coliseum's got a bit more of a sort of, not rhyme to it, but it just flowed a little bit better. And I thought, do you know what? If because you can't do it, it has to be a definitive moment. And I nearly got caught out because they nearly equalised. Fraser Forster had an unbelievable save.
Katanga, I think, that had the...
so I did get a little bit lucky in that sense, and the same in the away game.
Yeah.
Rome conquered. That's what I said on Cham's goal.
Yeah, because I think we went 1-0 down in that game as well. Kind of
Forrest scored, he equalised, and then Ilave and Cham got the winner. And that's just, as I think, as it should be, pure emotion. Like that's what I love football for. Yeah. And the way that I would say that, because a lot of people ask that if you script it, which the answer is no. But what I do is I try and prepare my mindset for it. So almost, you can't do it every week because the weather won't allow or your time won't allow. But the way that I can sort of free my mind of all your stresses of life and all that sort of thing, I go into the mountains.
Yeah.
So I've actually, just 2 days ago, I thought, right, pre-cup final, I'm going to do a good hill walk. So I went up, did the Grey Corries. It's like 21k, 1,600 metres of height gain. It's a beast of a day. My knees were absolutely shot by the end of it. But it gave me, I was with a friend and the dog, and that's, so you chat away, but you also have
you're able
a couple of hours where it's just
off,
you. Yeah. And so I got that, like maybe 2-3 hours of just preparing your mind for, what if Rangers score a last minute goal? What if Celtic win it on penalties? Whatever it is, it just means that when it does happen, and it might be nonsense, but it feels to me like that's the most important part of my preparation. It's not maybe getting down how many goals they've scored this season and things like that. It's actually preparing your mind for what might come, so it's not a shock when it does. And 99% of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
But at least if it does, you're already there. You've already imagined it.
And I think when you look at atmospheres as well in football stadiums, you know, there's a lot of English fans that probably claim that like Anfield and Old Trafford and Etihad are, you know, some of the best atmospheres in European football.
They're
For
not.
me, Celtic and Rangers, like even as a Celtic fan, Ibrox is in the top two,
Yeah.
hands down. And when you look at the Europa League run they had, how much fun was that? I mean, you know, I've watched obviously the commentary in the semi-final, and it just seemed like it was pandemonium at the final whistle.
I mean, that semi-final against Leipzig
Mm-hmm.
that is one of my favourite moments of my career. It was unbelievable. Ibrox was just full of so much emotion that night.
Yeah.
It was the week after Jimmy Bell or the week of Jimmy Bell's passing as well. So you could feel that from the coaching staff and the players, and obviously the fans tap into that as well. So that whole run was and I thought that sort of thing wasn't possible again for a Scottish team. But that's always, because the other question that you get a lot of the time is, who do you support? I'll support any Scottish team and genuinely support any Scottish team in Europe. I want them to win.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was possible. Okay, the invent of the Conference League makes it more so.
Yeah.
But I didn't think at that time it was possible for a Scottish team to get to a major final ever again in Europe. And I think when you look at, the last 15, 20 years of the teams that have made it to finals, it's English and Spanish mainly.
Yeah.
And then you throw in, a few Italians, Germans. That's pretty much it. Portuguese actually do. They punch above their weight, the Portuguese. But it was just great to see a Scottish club really on the map. And everyone thought it was going to be West Ham Rangers in the final. And of course, Frankfurt then beat them in it. And I was quite pleased about that as well, because I thought that it would take a bit of the shine off Rangers being there. If
an English
West
team
Ham had been there, they'd maybe take some of the attention away. So that was brilliant. Going out to Seville to do the final was.
Did you think Rangers were going to get the job done, especially when Joe Aribo fired them ahead?
Yeah. I mean, and they didn't look too troubled. And it's a bit of a scrappy goal.
Yeah, it's one of the cheap goals that you just go to sleep. Maybe
he gets in front of the defender. It's a good finish. But I thought Rangers looked quite good. Remember, and they did that without a striker.
I think the heat as well. I think the heat was extraordinary that day.
Cooking. Like, I think I went through about 3 litres of water during the game. I didn't go for a pee once. So like, it was. Do you know it was the same when Celtic played in Seville? 4-3 game. And I had to do the reporting as well. And I was up and down those stairs about 5 times. And your body's just going, give me more water.
Yeah.
And you like imagine what all I'm doing is talking.
Yeah.
Imagine you're running about.
Oh.
You're a wee pasty Scotsman charging down the wing. And this heat, it's unbelievable. And it was about midnight when that game finished as well. And it was still hot.
Because obviously extra time and penalties kind of thing. So massive game on Saturday, and a first since 2002. I was actually thinking earlier on as well, I might be wrong, but I think in the last 25 years, there's actually only been 5 cup finals between Celtic and Rangers if you look at League Cup and Scottish Cup. When you look at how far ahead Celtic and Rangers are, or how perceived it is that Celtic and Rangers are so far ahead, are you surprised by the fact that, not to say that Celtic and Rangers haven't won trophies, but the fact that they've not been in more finals in the last 25 years?
I find it staggering. 22 years since the Scottish Cup final.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Obviously, there's been a few League Cup finals. I mean, the Christopher Julian one always comes to mind. And obviously semi-finals and things like that. But to not have had a Scottish Cup final between, by an absolute mile, the 2 biggest teams in the country. And I don't mean that against any of the other teams, but if you've got a budget that's whatever it is, 5, 10, 20, 50 times bigger than the rest, then the pair of them they should be getting to every final. Obviously, if they draw each other, which they have in that time on numerous occasions, but they should be getting to finals. In fairness, Celtic have made so many, and they've won a lot, but Celtic let quite a few slip go when when Rangers were down. Since Rangers have come up, they've only won 1.
Yeah.
They beat Hearts 2 years ago, and that's it. So, they haven't performed
Yeah.
at the level that they should. It's going to be fascinating. Like I'm really looking
Are
forward
you
to
hoping
it.
for a 2 or 3 each and extra time and penalties?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, see, with cup finals, even if it's a boring game, it's not.
Yeah.
Because there's so much on the line.
Uh-huh.
And it's not like a league game. It could be, last game or second last game of the league season. You're thinking these two going head to head. Somebody has to win it, and it's 0-0, and they just both get cagey and they don't know what to do. That can't happen in a cup final.
Yeah.
Because at some point, a bit like the Norway game, there's going to be drama.
Yeah.
It might take 120 minutes plus penalties to get it.
Yeah.
But
there's
going to be excitement at the end. It doesn't
Yeah.
always happen in league games like that. So Saturday's going to be, it's going to be fun. And, having 50-50 split away, not home and away fans, but, equal fans. And I think the derby in that sense has lost a little bit. I know they're starting to bring it back for next season. When there were no away fans at Celtic Park or at Ibrox, I just think, look, obviously it has its downsides, the derby and certain behaviours within it, absolutely, and rightly they are downsides. But it's the biggest selling point of Scottish football. It is right. We should celebrate the fact that we have this humongous derby. Like nothing in England touches it. Like not even close. There are a few others in Europe. Yes. Milan derby. Istanbul, Athens. And then you can go into South America and places like that.
Yeah, Boca and River.
Previously mentioned.
Yeah.
Boca River and Rio's got quite a few, but to have Glasgow right in amongst that and to say that one's better than the other within that group, I don't know. I mean, Celtic Rangers could be the biggest.
Yeah. And I think when you touch on that League Cup final, Christopher Julian scored the winner, and I remember the coverage that day was unprecedented, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. I was actually really disappointed that Premier didn't decide to kind of go with that again. Was that just a...
Well, I would think, so that was on BT. And of course that's exclusive.
Yeah.
So nobody else is showing that. So I think when it comes to the Scottish Cup, of course that's on BBC and Premier. So I think it's probably harder when you've got a free to air national broadcaster is going to take the lion's share of the audience. So it's a bit harder to then commit so much of a budget to it. I would have thought. I don't know what the answer is, but that day was it was funny. I mean, in fairness, because I think say it's a 3 o'clock kickoff. I can't 3 or 4, and I just get to swan in at like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and Emma and Daryl and all the rest of them. They've all been there since about 7. So I had it easy. I think I only had to do one bit before, maybe 2 before kickoff, but in the main, my rule's quite stick to the 90 minutes. And keep his mug off the telly.
And obviously, when we touch on Scotland again, how good was that last qualifying campaign? I mean, this football luck, it's easy, isn't it? I don't know why we struggled for so long.
Well, yeah, and particularly because I've been through so many qualification campaigns as a fan, and some pretty not dark times, because you still enjoy yourself. You're going away with your mates and you're having a good time, but some of the football you're struggling to justify when you get home and you've taken extra time off work, which for me means not getting paid. And you come back with a sore head. And you're just thinking, was that worth it? And of course, when the next one comes around, of course it was worth it, and you keep going. But to get that reward as a supporter, Scotland being at a major tournament, I think it's better for the tournament. I think as fans we travel really, really well. I I don't even need to say I hope that everyone behaves in Germany. I know they will.
Yeah.
I know the Tartan Army are really well self-policed. There's a great camaraderie and just attitude amongst Scottish supporters, I think. So look, we'll have a great time in Germany. Hopefully the football sort of shines on us as well, and we can perform and we can have a moment. But that last campaign was, of course, it petered out a wee bit towards the end, but the job was done.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think we ever really recovered from McTominay's not goal in Seville. Which I'm not over, but
I'm still not over it.
The opening 5 games were phenomenal. Like, you think the Spain game at Hampden was,
and then
we beat them with ease. We were never in any danger. And the Georgia game in the rain, Oslo.
That was crazy. Like the Georgia game, because I genuinely felt like, is this game going to go ahead? Because
and we didn't know. So Connie McLaughlin was down, and she was trying to get all the information, which even the UEFA delegates and the Scotland SFA PR guys, they didn't know. So it was, Scotland were desperate to play. Because the game gets suspended after Callum McGregor scored, I think, didn't it? Yeah. Had that not gone in, I'm not sure, because obviously by that stage everything's changed, and the Georgians are thinking, "Oh, we're one down here.
Yeah,
if there's a chance to get this back to 0-0 and start again, then they'll take that." Whereas Scotland are desperate for that not to be the case.
Exactly.
But I think that changed the mentality when they did come out, because Georgia have been complaining in the tunnel that they don't want to play. The minute then you go back on the park, your mentality's not right. You're thinking that you've got a grievance. And Scotland had the sort of freedom to play as much as they possibly could on the pitch. That was a bonkers night. It really was. And fair play to the ground staff for.
I think everybody to a man just chipped in and just the typical Scottish mentality. Let's get this game on.
I think somebody did a quick trip to B&Q or something and got some of those big scooshy rakes.
Yeah, and when you look at it, then do you think then, but when you compare the two Euros campaigns, obviously we've not played yet, but do you think in the last Euros campaign, do you think there was a touch of an experience in amongst the squad, hopefully, that we'll not see this time round?
Yeah, because it's a very similar squad.
Yeah,
there's not much difference. We're only 3 years on. They've had that extra 3 years to kind of build as a group, to learn. And I think you're right. Maybe being away from Hampden might help as well.
Yeah,
full crowds, because I think that was difficult for all footballers to play in that environment. When we were broadcasting them, it felt like training games, but you had so much on the line. So I can imagine to be out on the pitch, it might have helped some. Some might have sort of thought, "Oh, I can play without pressure here." But others, I think, need that drive to really spur them on. So look, we're in a better place than we were then. I think we've qualified, directly, not having to go through the Nations League playoffs. And we things like the Spain result, knocking out Norway, because everyone's thinking, Haaland and Odegaard are going to the Euros. No, Scotland have taken that away from them.
Exactly.
And I think to do that, it builds a belief, and Steve Clarke's unbelievable for that. I think the players love playing for him. And he's made us hard to beat again, which I think we needed to just refine that. That's what we had through the 90s, just to be stuffy when you need it. And then we could do with a bit of luck, and
as
Germany.
Always,
it will be tight. You would obviously think Germany would be the favourites to take that group. You never know, because it's only recently that they've come onto a bit of form. But it feels like,
I mean, we nearly topped Spain in a group. Do you know what I mean? When you look at if we'd got a result in Seville.
Yeah, even a draw out there. And which I think if we'd scored, we wouldn't have lost that game.
And I think when you look at then Lauren Shankland, massive season from him. Double award winner for Hearts. Do you think that he has to feature probably heavily in the next two friendlies if he's to feature in the Euros?
It's interesting. I I think he'll feature
Mm-hmm.
either way in Germany. I don't think he has to prove anything.
I feel like there's a pressure, or there was a pressure when he came in the last time.
Yes.
I feel like everybody was looking at him,
Yeah.
scoring goals for Scotland, and I just feel like if you take that pressure away from him, he will score goals for Scotland.
So I thought in the last one, I thought he wouldn't start against the Netherlands, but he would start against Northern Ireland because he was likely to have more chances. As it turned out, we barely created a chance against Northern Ireland. That's how I thought it would work. So it's tough to say. I mean, it would be great to get our strikers firing a wee bit. Lawrence is obviously the man who's banging goals and all sorts of goals.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I find really intriguing about him and exciting about him. It's left foot, right foot, headers, volleys from outside the box, scorchers from 30 yards, delicate finishes, placed finishes. He does have the lot, and his hold-up play is better than I think he gets credit for. But that's not to say that he's the all-round striker.
Yeah.
So Lyndon Dykes gives you bigger, more presence, physicality. If you're turfing balls into the box, he's a real animal after the ball as well. So like he'll cause defenders a problem. Shea Adams, he's sharper, quicker, he'll run in behind. So it comes down to the tactics of what Steve Clarke wants to do with that front man. He might want one dropping in short with McGinn and Christie running beyond him. So we'll see, and that might just come down to the opposition.
Yeah,
and he might look at the centre backs and who fits best against them. But what a striker you get if you combine the three of them.
Oh yeah, because I think certain
one.
games are going to be suited for certain strikers, like the Germany game probably suited for Lyndon Dykes and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I say, hopefully we'll get out the group anyway. What advice then would you have for anyone wanting to get into the business, to become a commentator or a production staff kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think touching back on what I said at the top of the show, it's just say yes to any opportunity. Don't never feel that you are above a role.
Yeah, because
every opportunity presents a further opportunity. It potentially opens a door. You never know that even if you're, say, what you perceive as the lowest position on the job, the top position on the job might see you.
Yeah,
that guy's really enthusiastic. Enthusiasm gets you further than anything else. Like even more so than whatever grade you've got on your paper. If you show yourself, particularly in that industry, because you don't have to have passed an exam to be able to do the job. No, I mean, it helps in certain aspects, but in the main, it's about being reliable, enthusiastic, hardworking. Like I said, Ricky Hatton fight, I put in 36 hours straight, and was enthusiastic for it all. And a lot of that comes down to choosing a profession or finding a career that's something that you love. I could have pursued something else, but my heart wouldn't have been in it. This was the closest I could get to banging pitch. One in at Hampden from 20 yards myself. That after a certain stage I had to give up on that dream, but I can describe it. Yeah. And hopefully describe, all what it means, what that whole picture represents, what it means to the supporters of that team, of the other team that have just conceded it. That's where my attributes lie. So I think that's it. It's maybe not getting stuck on always just this one path. It's being malleable and able to find your way that's going to allow you to thrive the best, because then ultimately you'll enjoy it better if you're doing something that you're good at. Yeah, and absolutely agree. Listen, thanks very much for coming in. Thank you.
Hopefully have a good game on Saturday. You have lots to talk about and lots to enjoy. Who you be doing co-coms with?
Do you know what? I've not actually seen the list. It will definitely be Michael. And then we've done Michael and Alan Hutton.
Uh-huh.
But then they might think that doesn't have a Celtic voice. So
Maybe John Hartson would
could be. I think Scott Brown might be on, but I don't know if he'd be on commentary. So yeah, I'm not sure. I know Michael is. I'm not sure beyond that. But
Yeah,
we'll find out near the time, I guess.
no worries. Well, that's all we have time for, guys. We'll be back very soon with the Added Time podcast. But if you haven't done so already, if you get onto YouTube, search for the Let's Have It channel and click subscribe for all the great content. But until next time, guys, we'll see you later.